Okay, this is just a very brief introduction to a free service, which I have to say is something I found more than useful over the years. So, what is VirusTotal? VirusTotal is a free malware scanning service that brings together, at present, around 70 different malware scanning services. It's actually been around for about 20 years now, but has only become really popular in the past 5-6 years or so. I only wish I had known about it earlier. The benefits of VirusTotal are obvious. It would take you ages to manually scan a file with 70 different antivirus scanners, one by one. VirusTotal does all this in a matter of seconds. So, the main advantage of VirusTotal is that if one scanning service misses some piece of malware, another may catch it. I should stress, however, that this isn't a magic bullet, but rather it can be one more layer of protection from internet malware. We'll take a look at it in a moment, but first, why do you need it? If you don't download and install software from the internet, then you probably don't need to use this. But most of us are downloading stuff from the internet all the time, and if that's the case for you, you should consider using this every time you do so. In the days of Windows 9.5, 9.8, ME and even XP Service Pack 1, the malware threat was very different. Internet banking was in its infancy, even internet shopping was in its infancy. Most malware was in fact viruses, hence the name VirusTotal, which just spread through the internet, wreaking havoc on people's computers as noisily as possible. Then money came into the picture. Now, most malware is rootkits, trojans, and other software that sits on your computer as quietly as possible, doing everything it can to avoid detection, and just waiting until the user goes to a banking site, a shopping site, or some other site where the user may enter their credit card information or other useful info, and then stealing that information and using it. In recent years, ransomware has also become common. Here, users get their computers infected with something that encrypts the hard drive, effectively making it unusable until the user pays a ransom. And then there's the threat of your computer or device becoming, quote, owned, unquote, by some individual or organization, and used to carry out attacks elsewhere, to cover their tracks and incriminate you at the same time. With money as the incentive, malicious hackers will go to great lengths to get their malware into your computer, and today it's often large and well-funded criminal gangs who are behind these efforts. There are many ways they can do this, from so-called phishing emails to social engineering, but here, in the interest of brevity, I'm only going to deal with one. Free software that you actually go looking for online. Some of the worst offenders here, by the way, are video downloaders, file format converters, and torrent software. But bear in mind that malware can come bundled in free of charge with anything, and anything that's free to begin with requires extra caution, or you may find that you get more free gifts than you bargained for. Here is a random search I carried out for file format converters. I didn't intend to go out looking for file format converters, but a few years ago, after using Format Factory, an incredibly handy little program created by a Chinese developer, in a moment of idleness, I put the old exe, which was still on my hard drive, through VirusTotal. To my shock, it came up positive for about 24 kinds of malware. Shock, because by this time I had already been using the thing for about 5 years. Originally, it had glided past checks by Windows Defender effortlessly and the free antivirus I had installed on my computer. Talk about closing the barn door after the horse has bolted. But I immediately uninstalled it and vowed never to install anything again without scanning it thoroughly on VirusTotal first. Still, reasoning that the program itself was not necessarily malicious, and that it could have been infected at the download site, which I couldn't remember, I decided to kick off my search for file format converters with Format Factory. This time, I didn't even get as far as downloading it to my hard drive before the antivirus software on my own computer blocked it. So, that left several others, including FreeMake, which I already had on my hard drive but hadn't yet installed, Adapter, Movavi, Hamster, FreeAC, Coffee Cup Pix Converter, and BSC Converter. FreeMake also came up positive. As a general rule of thumb, if something shows up as infected with malware by only one or two vendors, the chances are very high that they are false positives. That's when you have to decide for yourself if it's worth taking the risk. If something shows up as infected by more than 3 vendors, I would say the chances are very high that something really is wrong. So, as you've just seen, you can download a file to your computer or other device, then run an online scan from the VirusTotal site, or you can scan a URL if you like. There's also a browser add-on or extension which you can use. But what about the sites you download free software from? Apart from FileHippo, which you've just seen, there are many other free software sites, like FileHorse, FilePuma, God knows what the thing about animals is, Softpedia, CNET, and Major Geeks. Many sites like these actually use VirusTotal themselves, and or have their own virus scanning software. So, first of all, an ironclad rule for downloading free software is to only go to reputable sites like the ones just mentioned. However, even though these are all reputable sites, and some even guarantee that the files they offer for download are clean, you can't just leave it at that, download and install. I'm going to suggest that you also scan the same files one more time on your own computer after downloading, for reasons that will now become obvious. Okay, so here you can see that I'm picking the exe files from the folder I put them in after downloading and letting VirusTotal scan them. As you can see, the first few all turned out clean. So hopefully this is how things should be for you and the files you download and scan too. In a moment I'll skip to the end of the folder to make a point. The last file came up as infected according to one vendor. In these circumstances, it's really up to you whether you take the risk of installing it. In all probability, this is a false positive, because there's theoretically not a great deal of chance that all the major vendors would miss something like this. However, I have to stress that all the files in this folder were certified safe by a major download site. Now, here's where things started getting interesting. This file was downloaded from FileHippo, a much trusted download site I mentioned already, which guarantees that the files it makes available for download are malware-free. Pretty concerning, eh? So, here's what happens when you download from FileHippo. You get this guarantee. I'm not showing this to pick on FileHippo. Other download sites had problems with this application too, as you'll see in a moment. I then tried downloading the same software from Download Crew. It wouldn't download, didn't get past the error checking stage. Then I tried Softonic, which is another well-trusted site. We saw their guarantee earlier in this video. And wow, once again, this guaranteed safe software was found by VirusTotal to be crawling in malware, including, apparently, malware designed specifically for Softonic. So, to sum up, I'm not saying don't use these free software sites. Most of the stuff on them is indeed safe to use, and I download software from these sites regularly. But do proceed with caution, as the warning would have it, and give everything you download an extra scan before installing.